Hi, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Action Mapping webinar. It's a real pleasure to be making the presentation this evening. I'm just going to bring up the presentation in a moment. I'm actually sat at home on the Isle of Wight. I can spin the camera around and show you the view of the sea out the windows here. It's quite a lovely evening looking out on the sea. I'm just going to bring up the presentation and share my screen with you all. So I hope you can see the PowerPoint presentation. Please do write me any questions you have in the chat field of the box you'll find there on the screen. Tonight we're going to talk about manifestation and how you can invoke the law of attraction and, of course, take effective action and also interaction. Many of you watching tonight will know me. We've got people signing in from many places. Many of you will have used my techniques over the years, either life mapping, goal mapping. Less people have had action mapping. It's a program that I only run occasionally for the public workshops. Each of the techniques is always created using words and pictures. So here a goal map, life map, and an action map. The reason for using the combination of words and pictures is so that it helps to activate both our logical mind as well as our creative mind. The words are very much for our consciousness, and the imagery is to influence our subconscious mind. I've run the programs over many years now with big businesses such as those you see on the screen, people like Disney and Microsoft, Barclays Bank, Coca-Cola, etc. Run it also with schools, and occasionally the programs are in the news. Here an article from CNN about using goal mapping to advance your career. Coming in May, we've got a whole day action mapping workshop. Tonight, we're just going to give an overview of the program and some of the key aspects that are involved in it. It's on the 25th of May at the Park Inn Hotel. Many of you will have been there for either goal mapping or life mapping. The investment is same as normal, £49 plus VAT, to make it as affordable as possible for people. And if you're interested in more details or to book, you can go to my website, which is goalmapping.com, click on the events tab or /events, and you'll find the action mapping there with details about the program, start times, finish times, and of course, how you can book the program. I run a number of workshops because they apply to the different aspects of success. While we are all different, what separates us is our thoughts or our consciousness. Each of us are a combination of thought, feeling, and action. Our repeated thoughts that we accept as true about ourselves and life become our beliefs. Our repeated feelings solidify into attitudes towards people and life, and our repeated behavior and routines become habit patterns. And it's these three aspects, thoughts, feelings, actions, or beliefs, attitudes, and actions, that shape who we are as a person, our quality of character. And through ourself, we start to influence life around us. Goal mapping is very much focused on enhancing your beliefs and learning how to set conscious intentions. My next program on life mapping is about developing winning attitudes and raising your self-esteem to a high level. And then action mapping is about changing habit patterns, taking effective action, and also interaction, communication with other people. And through that, you develop yourself as a person. And as you grow yourself and you bring yourself into balance, you become your true self, you're at your best, and you simply live your best life. By becoming yourself, it helps you to find your flow, the best way for you to go. I meet so many people these days that are intending to be in the flow. Some don't really understand the process of creation. And so I want to give the essence right at the beginning here of the webinar that everything starts with intention. Even being in the flow and finding our natural, graceful ease still requires an intention. And it begins with the mental. Once we have an intention, the next thing to consider is who we need to be as a person in order to achieve the intention. Our beingness is a combination of our thoughts and our feelings, and together they empower what we do. Through thought, feeling, and action, we very much shape and empower our skills. And through our skills and our knowledge, it leads us to have our intention. And this syntax for success, starting with intention and then being our best so that we do our best in all the different aspects and areas of our life. And it leads us to have our best results. Be, do, have. And through that process, we find our flow. Beingness is our mindset. Doing is very much our skill set, which leads us to have our best results. And by applying ourselves in this way, we live our best life. Many of you watching will know my story. I was born into a traveling family. Here on the screen is a picture of my father's fun fair. I moved around a great deal as a child. I had lots of different homes each year, not much school. Left school at 13 without any formal qualifications and unable to read or write properly. I worked full-time from 13 with my father to help run the family business, and life was pretty good for a time, but then in the late 1980s, early 90s, the family business came to an end, and with it, everything that seemed important in my life also come to an end at that time. I found myself homeless and without income, unemployed, and really not knowing what to do. I was £1 million in debt. It was 1992. I had no qualifications. I'd never had formal employment in my life, and of course, unable to read and write. I took a job as a salesperson, not really because I wanted to be a salesperson, but it was one of the few opportunities open to me. And it turned into a great blessing in my life. And it started a new phase in my life and a new conscious journey in my life, where I started to understand the principles of success. One of the early principles I learned is that lasting success is not an accident. I'd grown up very much thinking that success was random and chance. And of course, life is quite random. Winning the lottery is random, but lasting success is not an accident. It happens on purpose, and it happens by following the principles of success. And one of the early things that I was taught in my personal development journey is that change is like the wind that blows. We can't control the force or the direction of the wind. I'm here looking out on the sea, and today the wind has been coming from a different direction than normal. But there are sailing boats going by, and regardless of which way the wind blows, they're able to adjust the conditions of the boat, choose the set of their sail, and through that, they're able to continue on their journey. And by learning the principles of success, and learning how to have influence over ourselves, we are also able to continue on our journey through life. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, said, "The universe is change, and our life is what our thoughts make of it." Everything starts with our thoughts. By understanding that we are the captain of ourselves and that we can choose our thoughts, we're very much able to influence ourselves. And through influencing ourselves, we're able to influence our life. Belief, attitude, and action come together to help us to be our true self, our best self. And through that, we're able to influence and steer our own boat and make progress in our life. What is fundamental with all the changes that are constant in the world, and we live in such a rapid period of change where every aspect and area of people's lives is changing, is that we know where we each want to go. And goals are like beacons of light by which we steer our course. And so having a goal map, so you're clear on your direction and your intention, is fundamental to success. As well as knowing where we want to go, it's also important that we know who we choose to be, and that we have a guiding star to aim for and feel like we have a sense of purpose in our life. And so a life map is like having a compass that always points to true north. It always points to us being our best. An action map is like our rudder, because through our actions, we can apply ourselves to life and influence life around us. My journey took a huge step forward when I learned the science of positive thinking. And many of you that have been to my workshops or have watched my webinars before will know this was a key part of my journey in understanding this quote from Henry Ford: "If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't," is not just an opinion, it's actually a science. And by learning about how our brain cells connect, it really helped me to propel my life. We each have billions of brain cells, and each of our brain cells or neurons grows arms and branches called axons and dendrites. And when we have a thought, it starts in the middle of the brain cell, it travels out along the arms and branches, it wants to connect with another arm and branch, but there's a small gap called the synaptic gap that separates all the arms and branches. The key thing that I learned that was so fundamental in helping me improve my life is that if we hold a positive thought about our life or ourself, it triggers the release of a chemical into our brain called serotonin. And serotonin helps us to make more connections between our brain cells, allows our thought to continue on its journey, and we build up a positive pattern of thought. Now, at first, the brain cells break back apart again. But if we repeat the same thought over, if we remind ourselves of our intention and our goal, gradually we strengthen the brain cell connection. And as we strengthen the connections, we're able to work with more of our brain. We're able to enliven both our creative mind, having a good vision of the future with more ideas and creativity, as well as using our logical mind to form a strategy, make a plan, and follow through with effective action. And it's this combination of logical mind and creative mind that really helps us to be at our best, that we can capture a vision for our future and we can make a plan to move towards it. If the thought we think about ourselves is positive in its nature, then that positive thought about ourselves triggers the serotonin that in turn gives us a positive feeling about ourselves, and we grow our self-esteem. If, however, the thought we think is negative about ourselves, our life, our situation, then we release a different chemical into our brain called cortisol. And the cortisol is a neuroinhibitor. The more negative we become, the more our brain actually closes down. We focus on the problem and it starts to look bigger and bigger and bigger as it grows in our mind. The cortisol is also a chemical messenger that really puts us into the fight or flight response. And if our thought about ourselves is negative, then the cortisol very much lowers our self-esteem and we feel worth less and less and don't have any good feeling about ourselves at all. Setting goals helps to maintain the brain cell connection. Whether that's a goal about ourselves or a goal about our life or a goal about improving our habits and behavior. The more often we think about the goal, the stronger we make the connection and the more we grow our self-belief. And the stronger we make it, the more we start to raise our self-esteem. Everyone thinks in both words and pictures. The words are more for the logical mind and the imagery is more for the creative mind, and through it, we influence our subconscious. Our subconscious mind is enormously powerful. It can do the most amazing things, but the one thing that it cannot do is to make choices. It responds to our dominant thought. If our dominant thought about ourselves is positive, then our subconscious responds to that and helps us to be in a positive way. If our thought about ourselves is negative, then our subconscious responds to that and we become more negative. It's a natural process to think in words and pictures. It's something that all children do. That's why children's books are always produced with words and pictures together. A for apple, for instance, because by using this combination of words and pictures, we help to activate our whole mind and through that influence both halves of our brain. Through thoughts and feelings and actions, we create ourselves and we help ourselves to be our best. All three are connected and they're in what's known as a cybernetic loop. That simply means if you change one, it affects the other. If you change the way you are thinking, that changes the chemical release in your brain, which changes your feelings. And those feelings influence your physiology, your body posture, and through your attitudes also influences your behavior. My youngest daughter, almost as soon as she could walk, if something upset her, she would do the sad walk. Her head would go down, her shoulders slouched, and she'd stomp her feet. My teenage daughter does the same thing. It's instinctive within us because throughout our body, our nervous system is connected to our brain. And when we move our body into different positions, it sends different signals to our brain, releases different chemicals, which changes the brain cell connection, alters our perception of ourself and life, and very much influences our feelings. It was one of the most important things for me to understand this because in my early days of personal development, while I understood the science of positive thinking very quickly, I found it quite difficult to do. My mind was full of worries and I was very much conditioned into seeing what was wrong rather than seeing what was right. I met a British sports trainer, a guy called John Shackleton, who really helped me to understand how to use my physiology to support me in thinking positively. And I would notice that whenever I was negative, my physiology would change. And by being conscious of it and choosing to adopt a positive physiology, within a few moments, that would influence the quality of my thinking. And within a few moments more, it would influence the quality of how I was feeling. In the action mapping workshop, I'll be teaching techniques for influencing your physiology and putting yourself into a positive state. And this is something that's often mentioned now in the newspapers every so often about using power moves or Superman moves. And sometimes it can look a little strange, but it's actually based on very sound science. And although the techniques are simple, they are incredibly powerful and very applicable to all areas of life. Whether that is putting yourself into a good state before a meeting, or putting yourself into a good state before a day out with the family, or as my daughter is doing, putting herself into a good state for her study and the exams that she's about to take. By learning how to influence our state, we learn how to choose our way of being. And through that way of being, we empower what we're doing, which leads us to have our best results. Manifestation really works through a number of different aspects, one of them being the law of attraction. In my early days of personal development, I found it very difficult to understand and also to believe in the law of attraction. When the science of positive thinking was explained to me, it made logical sense that, okay, my thoughts, if I close my eyes and I think a positive thought, that triggers serotonin and gives me a positive feeling, and that in turn influences my behavior, and through my behavior shape my life. It was a logical train. But to believe that through my thoughts I could influence this invisible force, the law of attraction, was something that I just found very difficult to believe in. And my mentor and coach at that time, a guy called Mike Rosewarne, gave me a challenge to visualize the parking space that I would like outside of the busiest shop, right where I needed it. And the more often I visualized it, the more often I found that parking space. And then he had me visualize the work I wanted to do and the organizations I wanted to work with and the opportunities I desired. And gradually, little by little, through visualizing them, they came into my life. And while some of it I could see how I influenced it, much of what happened was unlogical in the way the right person came at the right time. I think one of the reasons why some people find it difficult to understand or to believe in the law of attraction is because there is a lag time in between thinking the thought and then the situation, circumstance, or person being attracted into our life. The law of attraction can be seen at a quantum level in a scientific experiment, and it's very instant at that microscopic level. But in the gross level of life, there is a gap of time between thinking a certain way and then the results of that thought showing up in our life. And it's really by experiencing the law of attraction that you gradually build your belief in it, and also, of course, your understanding. It's something that people have known throughout history. And in ancient times, it was said that by thought, word, and deed, we make and shape our world. Many people will know my story that by discovering personal development, I use the techniques to overcome my learning challenges, make new brain cell connections, which compensated for my dyslexia and helped me to learn to read and write well. Not so many people will know the deeper story that within a year of learning to read and write, my reading became much more focused on ancient spirituality and ancient techniques around manifestation and how you create your life. And I very much come to believe that working with personal development and helping people to improve their life was my purpose. I made the decision to dedicate myself to teaching personal development to others. And within a short while of making the decision, through the law of attraction, an opportunity came to work with the Anthony Robbins organization. It was really quite unlogical and unconnected the way it came. And I started working as a trainer. And within a few months more, the first technique of goal mapping came to my mind as a flash of insight. I really didn't sit down and create goal mapping, although I'm known as the creator of it. It came very much as a full-blown vision, and it took me some time to reverse engineer. And I again made the decision to work with the technique. I left the Robbins organization and also the Stephen Covey organization that I was working with. And I started running goal mapping workshops, and people just started to come. There's been very little marketing or advertising over the years with goal mapping, and yet it's gone around the world. I've presented in more than 30 countries. It's reached more than 4 million people. Over 1 million of those are school children. And a year later came the next technique, life mapping. And then a year after that came the technique we're talking about today, action mapping. All three of them really came through a vision. Goal mapping is focused on thought and holding intention and building belief. Life mapping is focused on feeling. Your words invoke your emotions and very much carry an extra energy. And so while all intention starts with thought, it's empowered through the vibration of word and the feeling that the word carries, the emotion. And then it's amplified again by deed, by taking action. Through thought and word and deed, we make and shape our world and life around us. By holding a positive thought, we trigger the chemical release that gives us a positive feeling, and in turn, we also influence the cells of our body and very much our body chemistry. When I was working with personal development in the first few years and holding positive thought, and I was believing in the law of attraction, I was a little confused that quite often something negative would seem to come into my life. And I was troubled by, why is this negative experience coming when I'm holding a positive thought for the last couple of years now? And I had a real breakthrough when I met my spiritual teacher, Bruno Ferrari, in Italy, who helped me to understand that all of the cells in our body are constantly replacing themselves. Over a 7-year period, we replace every cell in our body. Some cells, like our skin cells, replace themselves quite quickly in just a few weeks. And other cells take longer, but even our bone cells are replacing themselves. The challenge is that very often we're replacing them with the same encoding. Every thought and feeling that we have encodes a new cell as it's born, and that cell gives off a vibration and an attraction. And so each person is a signature, if you could see them under an electron microscope, of both positive and also negative energy. And so it's really important that we work with positive thinking, positive feeling, positive behavior over a period of time to gradually build up more positive attraction within the cells of our body than those that are negative and bring in challenges into our life. I know that many of you listening will have read the Goal Mapping book. It's been reprinted now many times. It's in many languages. Quite early on in goal mapping, I wanted to write a book, and a lot of people were saying to me that goal mapping would make a good book. The challenge was I didn't have much belief in myself, particularly as a writer. I'd only learnt to read and write at age 30. I didn't think any publisher would be interested in a book from a boy that's come from a traveling family and only learnt to read and write late in life. And so I didn't have the confidence to approach a publisher. And one of my friends suggested that I self-publish a book. And while I thought it was a good idea, I was also worried that my level of spelling and grammar was pretty awful, and that I wouldn't be able to achieve a book that people would want to read. And so it was suggested that I work with a freelance editor, and one was recommended to me who was also a personal development leader. And we worked together for a year, and it was quite expensive to work with him. At the time, I was struggling to pay off all of my £1 million debt, which took me 10 years to pay back. And so money was very tight, but I really believed that I should release the book. And after a year, the book was ready for print, and I'd arranged to go to the printers, and well, I was going to print 10,000 copies of the book. And the night before going to the print, I just had the worst feeling that something was wrong. And I couldn't sleep the whole night, and I was restless and anxious and constantly tossing and turning in my bed. And the next day, I decided to cancel the print run, not to go ahead with the book. And the editor phoned me at lunchtime, and he said, "How's the print going?" And I said, "Well, I haven't gone ahead." And he said, "What?" I said, I had this really bad feeling that something was wrong. And he said, "We've worked for a year on that book." I said, "I know." I said, "But I had this really strange feeling that something was wrong, and I've decided just to hold back." And he said, "You don't deserve to be teaching people about setting goals when you don't have enough belief in yourself to follow through with your own goal of printing your own book." He said, "You should be ashamed of yourself." And the phone call went on for about 30 minutes, and I just felt absolutely awful. After the call, I went away questioning myself really deeply, and really worried that I didn't have belief in myself. A few weeks later, I was at a Tony Robbins seminar, not actually to attend the seminar, but to have a meeting with the MD of the organization that used to run all of the Tony Robbins seminars around Europe. And they had asked me to run some goal mapping workshops. And at the goal mapping workshops, we were going to supply the delegates with my new goal mapping book. And at the meeting, the guy said to me, "Where's your book?" And I said, "I haven't got it." And he said, "What?" And I said, "I haven't got it." I said, I had this really bad feeling that something was wrong, and I've decided to hold back for a while." And he said, "You need to get in that seminar and listen to Tony Robbins and get some more personal power and follow through with your goal." And again, I felt really awful. And a little while afterwards, I was in Italy to run a goal mapping workshop with my spiritual teacher, Bruna Ferrari, and I told her what was going on. And she said to me, "I don't think you lack belief in yourself. I think you have been brave and responded to an intuition that something wasn't right. And you need to trust that intuition, and that when the time is right, the law of attraction will bring the right person to you that will help the book come about in the right way." When I returned to the UK a few months later, I was asked to write a magazine article on goal mapping that became incredibly popular, and it was republished a number of times. And then a phone call came from an editor of a publisher, Watkins, and the editor phoned me and he said, "I've read your article on goal mapping. Have you thought about writing a book?" I said, "I already have one, but I've not printed it." He said, "Bring it over." He said, "We'll get it into print and we'll pick up on all this good publicity you've had with your magazine article." And when I took the manuscript of the book and I gave it to the publishing team, they just couldn't stop themselves from laughing. It was riddled with mistakes, grammatical errors, spelling mistakes, inconsistencies, all the things that I'd paid this freelance editor to do. He'd really not done any of them. It hadn't been proofread, and I'd been quite cheated, actually. Now, the publisher brought in a special editor, and I worked for another year to produce the goal mapping book that you see here on the screen, which has been hugely successful. And it came in the right time, in the right way, with the right people, because I didn't force it. And this is a very ancient principle. And in some cultures, it was called a movement with repose, that you set the intention and then you have a flexible ease about how you move towards that intention. It's good to have a date on a goal, because without a date, it's not really a goal. But if we don't achieve the goal by the date we've set, then we need to quieten ourselves, listen to our heart, ask one key question: is this goal for my highest good and the highest good of all? And if we hear the answer is yes, then we give more time. When my book came out and I was sent the flyer to show which new titles my publisher was releasing, I was just absolutely amazed to see that my book sat right next door to one of my favorite books, The Gospel of Thomas, which talks about the secret of success being a movement with repose, and talks about how you develop yourself and become your true self. And all the spiritual books that I so admire, all surrounding my book as releases from the publisher. And I had no idea that I was their only personal development author at that time. It's trusting synchronicity and learning to invoke the law of attraction that really helps us to find our flow in life. At the Action Mapping Workshop on the 25th of May, I'll be guiding people through the content that we've just looked at, but taking it much deeper as we explore 7 principles of success to raise our awareness of our habit patterns, engage in possibility consciousness so that we see clearly the habits that will most support us in living the life we choose to live and achieving the things we wish to achieve. And just like in life, our body needs to be in balance. I meet many people that are setting goals about their health and their well-being, and for a good level of well-being, we need to support ourselves by having good behavior. And through that behavior, we help our body to be in balance, all the way from a cellular level to the gross level, and then through ourselves, we bring balance to our life. Balance in life is not static, it's active. And so at the Action Mapping Workshop, we'll be exploring 3 levels of purpose. And I'll show you those 3 levels in just a moment. Purpose is like a path that we pursue. And as we move along our path, it helps us to have balance. Very much like being on a bicycle. To stay balanced on the bicycle, we need movement. And to stay balanced in life, we also need movement. And so having a purpose helps us to move and stay balanced. And of course, as we move along our path in life, there will be many choices to make, which brings the 5th principle to develop responsibility. In the Action Mapping Workshop, we'll be exploring the deeper levels of responsibility and how you can use your physiology to enhance your power to choose your response. Knowing you can choose to be happy is very different from actually learning the techniques that empower you to do it. By learning how to put your physiology into a positive state, it helps you to hold a positive intention and to focus on what is right. By focusing on what is right with you, you release the serotonin and raise your self-esteem and empower your behavior to influence your life. And of course, in the Action Mapping Workshop, we will be looking at how you interact with others, because we do not wish to live a life on our own. Life is best when we are in harmony with our community around us. Learning how to interact in a positive way helps us to co-create and everybody to achieve their highest good. We'll also be learning how to engage in positive self-talk. By learning how to talk well to ourselves and changing our language patterns, we influence our feelings, and again, through our feelings, we influence our behavior. We'll be exploring the things you say to yourself when you're in a low state and not feeling good about yourself, and then changing those into positive statements about your high self. One of the early things I learned to change was the word failure. I had such a negative association to it. and I chose to change it to the word learning, which I had a very positive association to. And by making small changes in my language and how I would talk to myself, I influenced my mindset. Each thought we think, each word we use triggers a brain cell connection. Those brain cell connections influence the picture we have of ourselves and our life, and through that picture we release the chemicals that raise or lower our self-esteem and, of course, influence our behavior. Many people are looking for a sense of purpose in life, and there are really 3 levels of purpose. The first level of purpose is simply to be your best, to be all you can be. It's a purpose we need to choose. We have an exceptional level of free will. I have a plant here in the corner, quite beautiful cheese plant. It's being the best plant it can be because it has no choice. Being its best is simply encoded into the genetic of the plant. In humans, we have a very high level of free will, and we are free to choose to think our best and be our best, or to think our worst and be our worst. And so your first level of purpose is to be your best, not better than other people, just the best that you can be. The next level of purpose, life purpose, is to find and follow that thing that makes your heart sing, the thing that you are passionate about. By finding the thing that makes your heart sing, it gives you great power. We will all have difficult patches in our path as we make our journey through life. Having a very strong sense of purpose, choosing to engage in that thing that makes your heart sing, gives you an enormous level of power, helps you to face those difficult days, weeks, months, or even years in your life and come through the other side the stronger. We'll also be looking at higher purpose in the action mapping workshop, which is about leaving the world a better place. Maybe just your little part of the world, or maybe you wish to make a huge difference. The best legacy you can leave is the impact you have on the people around you. And by being your best, following that thing that makes your heart sing, and along the journey helping others so that you leave the world a better place, you're at your most powerful. There's a great story called The 100th Monkey, which is about some scientists that went to a remote island off of Japan where they were studying a colony of rhesus monkeys, and they were laying sweet potatoes out for the monkeys to come and eat so they could bring them into shot in the camera. And one day one of the monkeys accidentally dropped the potato into the stream, and in washing the potato, she ate it and found that it tasted much better after washing the mud off it. And she taught her sister how to do the same trick. And then together, her and her sister taught their mother, and then they taught others. And gradually they taught more and more monkeys this trick of washing the potatoes before eating them. And it got to a critical mass point of around 100 monkeys when suddenly all of the monkeys on the island spontaneously started engaging in the behavior of washing the yams or sweet potatoes before eating them. And it gave birth to the 100th monkey syndrome or theory, that when enough of us start to think the same way, it influences the consciousness of those around us. The question that came to my mind when I first heard the story was, what if I'm the 100th monkey? What if me being my best influences the consciousness of those around me, my children, my family, my friends, my community? And so my question to you, and we'll explore this deeper in the action mapping workshop, is what if you are the 100th monkey? What if you raising your vibration and you becoming your best is that critical mass tipping point that makes a positive change in your world with your community? To help you empower yourself to the fullest, it's important to face fear And so in the action mapping workshop, we're going to do some arrow breaking where we will be using real wooden shaft arrows, and you put the steel point in your throat, the other end goes against the wall. There's a special procedure. It's actually quite safe, but a little bit scary when you do it. And you push on the arrow and you break the shaft. Before engaging in the technique, you write on the shaft the behavior that you think you most want to change. And it is quite an amazing experience. I've taken hundreds and hundreds of people through the experience since I first learned it 20 years ago. It was my spiritual mother that you just saw there on the screen, Bruna Ferrari, that taught the technique to me. The youngest person I've taken through the technique is my own daughter, who was just 11 at the time. And the oldest person here, Augusta, is 82 when she was breaking the arrow with me last year in Italy. This is her before breaking the arrow, and this is her afterwards. It really is an incredible experience to do the arrow breaking. And of course, it empowers you to believe, well, if I can do that, I can break through other barriers and other limitations. We will be engaging, of course, in the action mapping technique. It's a very simple technique. Like my other techniques, just because it's simple, it also doesn't mean that it's not enormously powerful. If you wish to engage in the technique before the workshop, or you're not able to come to the workshop, you can download the templates free off my website, and I'll be giving the link to that in just a little while. You actually need to go through 3 templates, and you start off by raising your awareness of the habit or routine that you want to change. And so here an example of being lazy with exercise. And then identifying what is it you say to yourself when you are due to go out for exercise but don't feel like it. And on this example, I've chosen to focus on how I have been in the past when I get lazy with exercise, which is I tell myself I will do it soon or I'll start tomorrow. The feeling is that I just can't be bothered. I think I'll stay in bed a little bit longer because it looks cold and rainy outside. And I justify it by telling myself things like, well, I'm too tired at the moment and need to conserve my energy. And so you write down on the action mapping template the negative. And then you take a second template, which you lay at the side, and you write down the positive opposite. So instead of being lazy, I exercise regularly. And then some of the positive things that you can say to yourself and the positive feelings that they will give you. So if I exercise, it helps me to think more clearly. I know that I will like myself much more for getting up and making the effort and going out for that exercise. And actually, by exercising, it gives me more energy and helps my body to feel more relaxed. The words of the map are for your conscious mind, and it's important to create imagery to influence your subconscious mind. And so once you've written your positive statements, you then need to draw quick, simple pictures. And soon you'll be able to use my online program if you don't like to draw, and use clip art and imagery instead. And by creating your map in words and pictures, it influences both your conscious and also your subconscious minds. That your subconscious helps you to engage in the new behavior or action. And then to look at your map on a regular basis. And so I have my maps printed out, and in my folder, I look at them on a regular basis, and by looking at the maps, it forms the brain cell connections that create the beliefs that command my subconscious to help me to move towards my intention, whether that intention is a physical goal in my life, or a way I want to feel, or a new behavior or routine that I want to engage in. Sign the map, because by signing the map, you are giving your promise and it increases the power. And then see it and say it once every day. 30 days is a good period of time because it really helps the brain cells to establish their connection, form beliefs, and the belief becomes a constant command to your subconscious about how you choose to be and the habits that you wish to live with. All of our habits are governed through our self-image. Our self-image is a set of pictures of ourselves being the way that we are, that have been built up by all of our thoughts and our experiences over many years. By visualizing yourself being the way you want to be and speaking the words so that you affirm it, you start to form the new connections that command your subconscious to move you towards it. Thought, feeling, and action make and shape us, and through us, our world. And at the Action Mapping Workshop, you'll be able to engage with like-minded people and share your maps and get more positive ideas. You can download the free templates from goalmapping.com or send me an email at brian@brianmayne.com and I'll send you additional information. So once again, the whole day Action Mapping Workshop, 10 till 5, coming up on the 25th of May at the Park Inn Hotel, Heathrow, London. The investment is just £49 plus VAT. And you can see there my website address, goalmapping.com/events, where you can get more information, joining instructions, and book your seat. Just to sum up, we live our best life by thinking our best thoughts. That triggers the chemical release so that we feel our best feelings, which influence us into taking our best actions and developing supportive habit patterns. Goal mapping, life mapping, action mapping. Thought, feeling, action, and we live our best life. I do hope you've enjoyed the presentation this evening and it's been supportive for you. Empower yourself by creating your own action map. Bring it with you on the workshop if you choose. We'll be creating one there anyway, but I will help you take things further. If you have any questions at all, please do write them in. I'm just checking the box now. Said breaking up a little bit. Okay now, that's good to hear. Hi, all greetings from Denmark. Thank you, Steen. Okay. I wish you all very well. Thank you for tuning in this evening. Hope to see you on the workshop. We already have quite a few people booked, and I'm looking forward to spending the day with all of you that will be there. All my best. Take care. Bye-bye for now.